One of the four orders of social administration, the second order for the matter of good administration, is called Kshatriya. Shat means hurt. One who gives protection from harm is called a Kshatriya. Drayate, to give protection. The Kshatriyas are trained for killing in the forest. A Kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with the tiger with his sword. When the tiger was killed, it would be offered the royal order of cremation. This system has been followed even up to the present day by the Kshatriya kings of Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are specially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyas or renunciation. Non-violence in politics may be a diplomacy, but it is never a factor or principle. In the religious books it is stated, in the battlefield a king or Kshatriyas, while fighting another king envious of him, is eligible for achieving heavenly planets after death, as the Brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Therefore, killing on the battlefield on the religious principles and killing animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be acts of violence, because everyone is benefited by the religious principles involved. The animal sacrifice gets a human life immediately after undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another, and the Kshatriyas killed on the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmanas who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are two kinds of swadharma: specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual, and one is not in a material bodily concept. In the conception of life, there are specific duties for the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is obtained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashrama Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Spiritual civilization begins from the stage of Varnashram Dharma, or specific duties in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body ordained. Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of high authorities serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. So just read the next verse, just the verse. Krishna says, O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets.
So let me set up the microphone so you can be heard and also recorded.
Om Gyantimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we've just read in the Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna that he should fight. And we know that Arjuna is having a moral dilemma whether he should participate in this war. And in this war, he is facing his relatives, his gurus, his family members, his friends, people of his own kingdom. So naturally, a human being would be facing such a dilemma. Should he go to war? And should he fight? So most people would say, no, he shouldn't fight. His grandfather's there, Bhishma Dev. His guru's there, Dronacharya. His cousins, the Kauravas. His friends. If they die, how would he enjoy the kingdom? So in the 1st chapter and in the 2nd chapter, Arjuna gives many arguments. And after saying his arguments, he surrenders to Krishna. So then Krishna takes the role of the guru. So that kind of tells us that we may have many material reasons for not doing something. We may analyze it. We may, go over it again and again. But it won't give us satisfaction if it's not done correctly. So Krishna here, he introduces, he talks about working according to one's nature. So Prabhupada explains in the purport, he says Swadharma, he says there's two types. On the material bodily platform, it's called Varnashrama Dharma. So this word dharma is very, very popular. Actually, if in India, many Indians like to use this word a lot. They like to say we're very dharma. Like there's two words that are very popular. It's actually dharma and karma. Bhakti is there, but it's not as popular as these two words. Because Hindus, Indians especially, they like to be very dharmic. Sometimes they even call themselves karma yogis, you know. So dharma is the verse in the Gita where Krishna says yada yada hi dharmasya. You know, that's probably the most famous verse in India. If you go there, everyone knows this verse. I remember a few years ago I was on a Harinam party. We went to some Sikh festival with the devotees. So we were doing Harinam there, and then we were coming back on the train, and then this drunk man, he was a Sikh man, he saw us. And the first thing he said, he put his hand up in the air and he quoted that verse, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya. And I was like thinking, he's drunk. He's not with the program and he knows that verse, you know. And I didn't really know the verse properly. And I was thinking, how does he know it? So anyway, then I remember he told me that everyone knows this verse. This is just such a powerful verse. In fact, they use it a lot in Bollywood films as well. So anyway, so dharma, it gets thrown around a lot. But what is dharma? So when dharma, Prabhupada gives many translations, so many definitions, and there's different layered definitions. But to understand dharma, first we have to understand, what is the importance of it? How does it apply? So we all have different roles. Some of us are parents, some of us are husbands and wives, some of us we have a job, we are teachers, we are employees. You know, we all have a role, and there are kind of social conventions how to do those roles. There's rules. If we didn't do those roles properly, there would be problem. Like a father not telling his child what to do, how to behave properly, or letting him do what he wants. There'd be chaos. And the child wouldn't learn. So dharma is actually something we cannot escape. It's very much part of our lives. So Prabhupada says, one interesting definition is it's the nature of a thing. So it's the intrinsic nature of a thing. So, you know, if you analyze that word, what does it really mean? So we know that what is the purpose of fire? The purpose of fire is to burn, is to give light, right? What is the purpose of rain? The rain is to give water, be wet. People bathe with it. So everything has a nature if you analyze it. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that Jivara Suruphoya Krishna Nityadas, that the soul is the eternal servant of Krishna. That is his ultimate dharma, his ultimate nature. So Prabhupada, so another word of dharma is very interesting. It says, because dharma comes from the word dri, it means to sustain or hold. So if you do something that's in your nature, it will sustain you and hold you. Now think about that for a minute. If you do something that's in your dharma, your nature, and you do it correctly, right, it will sustain you. Just like someone doing a job. You do your job properly, you're going to get paid, you're going to be able to pay your bills, pay your mortgage, save, and retire. Maybe even get a promotion, maybe even get a bonus, and live more comfortably. So that's just a material benefit. Raising your children properly, they become productive, civilized members of society. They also contribute. A teacher, the nature of a teacher is to, in teaching, when I was training to be a teacher, I had my interview, and the senior course coordinator, she was like an elderly lady. She said to me, "Why do you want to be a teacher?" So I was thinking, I want to be a teacher because I want to help produce good citizens. I want to help people. And she said, yes, that's a very good reason. And she was someone who was a very experienced teacher. She was like 70. She probably had like 30, 40 years behind her. And she trained dozens, maybe hundreds of teachers. And she said that's the most important thing, is you want to help someone. And I believe it was Aristotle. He said that the purpose of education is to create character. It's not for accumulation of information. So teachers, surgeons, everyone has a role. So, and So dharma. So if we in the Gita, not just the Gita, but also the Vedic literatures, dharma is thrown around a lot. But dharma is not the ultimate goal of life. Dharma is the foundation. Dharma is the platform. And what is built on this platform? It is bhakti, devotional service to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada teaches dharma is not the end. Dharma is the means. The end is love for Krishna. So the distinction is everything. So let's discuss dharma now. So when we think of the word dharma, so I gave a few definitions. What else comes to mind when we think of dharma? Anyone could think of a definition? No one's heard of dharma before? Yeah. Yes, Maharaj.
Of course, occupation and the intrinsic nature, you mentioned that.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? When someone says this dharma.
Duty.
Duty, okay, what else? What else can we say? Think about in terms of someone commits a crime. He goes to the police, the authorities. He's expecting justice. So dharma can also mean justice. It can also mean truth, satya. What else? Anyone else?
Religiosity.
It can mean religion. So this means religion as well. Krishna uses that way. He says at the end, Sarva dharman parityaja, mām ekam sharanam vraja. And Prabhupada translates it as give up all religions. Because if you think about it, your job is also a type of religion. Your philosophy is also a type of religion. Okay? So it's actually a word that's very difficult to translate into English. And actually, religion, it's like, like the problem is when you're, sometimes they say things are lost in translation. You can't, so when you're translating, you're losing the meaning, the essential meaning. You're giving the best meaning. So there's words like dharma, I'm not just dharma, there's many words. They cannot be perfectly translated into English that gives the full depth of it. So because it's a very versatile word, it means so much on different layers. There's nuance to it. So when Krishna is using the word here, he's saying to Arjuna, do your duty. He's saying you're a Kshatriya. So so if we study Varnashrama, if you look, so we have Brahmana, we have Kshatriya. What are the other two Varnas? Anyone like to say?
Vaishya.
What's a Vaishya?
Merchant.
Merchant class. What is a Shudra?
Working class.
Working class. So if we study what these different things are, it's quite interesting. So when we think of Brahmana, what do we think of? What do you think? What are the qualities of a Brahmana? Teacher. What else? Priest. Yeah, and anyone else?
Foster.
Sorry.
Foster.
Foster. What do you mean by foster?
Brahman, well as chanting and well as guru.
I don't understand. Do you want to translate? No, sorry. No. Sorry, I don't understand Bengali. Okay, no, good attempt. So, Brahmana, someone who's simple, someone who speaks the truth. Okay, so there's a nature. Okay, I remember like my next door neighbors, they were Sharmas. Sharmas are North Indian Brahmanas, mostly Punjabi, and the father was quite religious, the mum was somewhat, but the children were. They used to eat beef. They didn't practice their religion, but they were like kind of like Hindus. We used to call them Hindu Pindus. They didn't really know, but they were Brahmins. They were very proud of it. We're Sharmas, we're Brahmins. And if you go to Delhi now, you kind of see that. So Kshatriya, we know it means. So the Kshatriya means someone who's good at fighting. Protect. So you can only be a Kshatriya if you're a fighter, right? Do you believe that? Is Kshatriya only in fighting? Do you have to be trained in martial arts to be a fighter? To be a Kshatriya? I don't think so. Government administration. So the nature, I'm going to come to why I'm asking this. So Kshatriya means he does administration, he does protection. What about Vaishya? So you someone said mercantile. So what's the nature of a merchant? If we were to summarize, if we were to discuss that, what would it really mean? Someone else? Maybe one of the Matajis at the back? It's a very engaging crowd today. It's the best crowd. Yeah. Speaking to okay. So
Someone that gets a profit.
yeah.
Something from one place and sells
Yeah.
for a profit.
So
Whereas, Vaishyas are also bankers, they're also
Business.
farmers.
yeah.
Business.
So Prabhupada talks about there's a community that comes from originally from Karachi in Pakistan. They're called Sindhis. Sindhis are like, if you read Prabhupada Leelamrita and his biographies, a lot of his disciples went to Europe and especially to places like Spain where there was a lot of there's a big Sindhi community there, and these people can go anywhere and they can make money. It's intrinsic to them. It's like they'll be, if they buy something for €1, because that was the currency, no, whatever the local currency, they'll be able to double it. It's natural to them, and it's not based on business knowledge or an MBA. It's natural to them. But what about Shudra? What's the nature of a Shudra? Someone said working, but what does it mean?
Physical labor.
Okay, physical labor. Okay, right. What else?
Non-specific labor. You can do
Non-specific labor. So when we think of a Shudra, we tend to think of someone who's not very cultured, who's not very sophisticated, doesn't really know what he's doing. But if you think, if you think about analyze this, Shudra is actually it's quite a sophisticated position, and the best example of a Shudra I can give is, you've probably all seen the English butler. Have you ever seen an English butler? You must have seen it in films. Very refined, very expert in looking after not just all the staff underneath him. He can speak really well. He looks very good, and he manages everything, right? And to become a butler, it's not like you just turn up. You actually, in UK, they used to have schools to train people. So butler, we shouldn't think of a Shudra as a low position. It's actually a very sophisticated position. So Shudra is someone who serves others, okay? Now, due to the society, when we have people who work in fields such as, and they're working for others, technically, like for example, you're working in IT, you're working even as a police officer, or you're working as a soldier. Technically, these are Shudra positions. When you're serving someone, when you're working underneath the authority of someone, you are a Shudra. A Vaishya is someone who works for himself. He doesn't have a boss. He works for himself, and it's in his nature to make money. Because I remember like someone was complaining at the temple. He was saying, "Oh, I'm really stressed down. My manager's really horrible to me. I have a good job, but my boss stresses me out." And the sannyasi chastised him, said, "Because you're doing, what do you expect if you're working for someone? That if you're just a Shudra position, a Shudra can take it. If you can't take it, then you need to go do it for yourself." Now he works for himself. He's very happy. And I remember I was very dynamic because I thought, well, he's working in something intellectual. But actually, when you're working for someone, it's a Shudra position. A Kshatriya, and when I was asking about, what does it mean? Does it mean to fight? No, a Kshatriya doesn't have to be good at fighting. He understands the principle of Kshatriya, which is to protect. He will introduce policies, introduce systems which will administer society and protect people. Like sometimes you see these films where this old, these young people, they approach this old person, who's kind of past his age, said, "Can you train me in some sort of martial arts?" That person can't fight normal in competition, but he knows the science. He knows the science of protection. He knows the science of fighting. So he'll train that person, and that person becomes qualified. So it doesn't mean it's not so much the fighting, it's not so much skill, but it's the principle. It's the principle that makes you true to your nature. And a Brahmana is someone who is not so much invested in money. It's about sharing knowledge. It's about doing the right thing. And a Brahmana Kshatriya are two categories of people who can give up their life for society to establish Dharma. They live to make sure people are following the religious principles and they're progressing spiritually, whereas the other two are not so much. So that's technically what it means, because we generally have a superficial understanding. So anyway, going back to the...
So I can give you one example.
Yes, go for it.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay, Sometimes when I say this, when someone's working in IT, I say actually that's a Shudra position.
Yeah,
They get very offended.
I want to simplify this your lecture a little bit.
I haven't finished yet.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
No, you're just the classification of these groups. So the thing is that if we consider the water pond, so when someone bring the water and offering Krishna and telling about the water, what is everything, he is working as a Brahmana because he is offering this water to other Krishna and is getting everyone by this way.
So you're saying a Kshatriya who's giving water?
No, the Brahmana is offering the water to Krishna.
Yeah.
And that way everybody getting this benefit in the society.
Yeah.
And that's why the water is working as a materials of Brahmana, right? And then same water controlled by army so that nobody can contaminate this water around. Yeah. And then the water protector are the Kshatriya. And
don't give your own class. Please just ask a question or make a short point.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Are you making a point? Or you're asking a question?
No, I'm just telling that you asked that for classification how we could classify that. Same water we can use the different place, different people, and we classify this 4 group.
So it depends on how you use it. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, how I use that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
By nature, we are belonging in on this group.
No, that makes sense actually. That makes sense. That's a good point. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That's good. So anyway, so Arjuna. So what the point is that Arjuna's nature is a Kshatriya. It's not that he likes to fight. His duty is to administer, is to defend. So Krishna is saying to him, you need to do this, it's your nature. You can't do anything else. And we see, Krishna says, Arjuna says he wants to be, what does he want? He wants to become like a mendicant. He wants to just go meditate and live off the land. Krishna says you can't do it. You won't be able to do it because it's not your nature. So it's very interesting. So Arjuna is this, from 5,000 years ago, he went to Gurukul. He's from the royal family, so he has the training, the qualification. He has people around him. The whole system was perfect for people who've been renounced. But at that point in his life, he was not ready to renounce. He was not ready to do that because he would have done it and then he would have regretted his decision. And Krishna says, people are gonna laugh at you. You're gonna hate it because it's not your nature. So it's very important. So the point is, when your dharma is think of it like this: you're doing something according to your nature, and that nature you're engaging in service to Krishna. And so it's yukta varagya. You're engaging your activity in service to Krishna, and it becomes spiritual. It doesn't matter what it is because Krishna accepts everything. So it's very important we do our dharma. If you don't do your dharma, whether it's looking after your child, then we're going to have problems. And if you think about it in terms of Krishna's plan, if you think about it in terms of Krishna's plan, it's a cosmic order. If people don't do their duty, it causes chaos. So what does Arjuna actually says? He says if we were to kill these people, these warriors, these soldiers, who would protect their wives? It would lead to Varnashrama, unwanted, because their women would not be protected, the children would not be protected, people would violate them. Then they would give birth to Varnashrama, unwanted progeny, children not born according to religious principles. And when that happens, society is destroyed. And that's 5,000 years ago. And obviously that's because if Arjuna not doing that would have led to that. Arjuna was using that as an argument. So so when you don't do your duty, it causes a chain reaction in society, and not just society, in the world. So I was thinking about when we were thinking about the demigods. Like I remember, Lord Brahma, he had been given this service. What was his service? To produce children who would populate the universe. And he had 4 children, the 4 Kumaras. Their job was to become Prajapatis, to populate, but they chose not to, because they became inspired by spirituality and they wanted to go to that path. But what happened? Lord Brahma got really angry because he'd been given a service by Krishna, and his children weren't helping him fulfill that. And due to that anger, Lord Shiva was born from his, one of the Rudra incarnations came from his middle of his head. So doing your dharma is very important. Now Arjuna, it's very difficult to understand what he went through unless you read Mahabharata. You watch, even the TV series doesn't do full justice to it. But I was reading it, the Mahabharata, and it was very, goes really into depth what these personalities were feeling. Like it was very gruesome. These personalities didn't die in a very simple way. It was very gruesome the way they died, and they were after they died, it was explained that there was so much. People, the widows were coming to the battlefield. They were crying, and children were. They became orphans. But even Arjuna had that. Arjuna's son, he was killed. He was killed when he came into the Chakravarti. He lost his son as well. So the thing is, Krishna is saying that if you don't do your duty, there's something greater that's going to happen. What is that? You're going to play a part in something going against the cosmic order, going against Krishna. And Krishna has a plan. So our dharma is to work according to Krishna's plan. It doesn't matter what it is. If you think about it, if something very minuscule, someone who doesn't clean the streets, if he doesn't do it, then it's the streets get dirty. Then there's rats, and there's pollution, causes germs, disease. People get ill. Like in England, there's a city called Birmingham. It's the second biggest city in the UK, and there was a strike by the sanitation workers, and I think it was for something like a month. It was pretty bad, and it's actually and apparently it's happened a few times since then. And they said that on the streets there were like these mountains of rubbish bags, and when you leave rubbish on the streets, it attracts vermin, rats, you name it, and there were rats running. It was like a harvest for them. And and people were complaining about this. They were saying, this is very unlivable sort of conditions. But just imagine those people not doing their job, doing their duty. Obviously, they had reasons why not to, but it causes a problem. Like in England, in London, a lot of the railway staff that works for London Underground, which is like your metro, they go on strike. And when they go on strike, it's mayhem, because many people who cannot get to work. They can't go to work, earn money, or they can't take their children to school, they can't get to the hospital, because everyone is dependent on the metro service. And it happens quite a few times. So just doing something like that causes tremendous issues in society. And these
happened right here last week. The LIRR went on strike.
Oh, did they? Okay. Oh, that's a Long Island Railway, yeah?
Yeah.
But they don't do that in New York, do they?
They do. They have.
Oh, okay.
The whole subway system went on strike one year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it happens 2-3 times a year. And then the government's in a rush to give better benefits. So people who work in the metro service in UK, London, they have very good benefits. It's very good pension. So they're quite happy there. So
no, they did for health insurance to increase their health.
Yeah,
insurance.
you need health insurance. Yeah. So if you don't do your duty, if you don't do your dharma, if you don't identify your dharma, you're going to cause a problem to society. So it's very important that you understand your nature. And how do you understand your nature? What is your intrinsic nature? You ask people who know you, who are wise, like your parents, your friends, spiritual leaders. If you have a spiritual master, ask them, and they will be able to guide you. This is your nature. This is where you will be the happiest. We hear, like, I remember growing up in London, like my next door neighbor, from the age of 10, when he moved next door to me, he used to always say, I want to be a doctor. And he didn't say he wants to be a doctor because he wants to help people. I don't remember him ever saying that. It was the prestige behind it. Like being a doctor, I mean, I'm sure it's the same thing in India. It was the most prestigious thing. If you became a doctor, it was such a respectable thing in the Indian community. And now it's not so. But I remember like what few of my friends they did the medicine path degree and they dropped out and they went into other fields because they weren't happy. So they were trying to do something where they were following the money. At the time there was good money, but then they left. Like we have people who work in investment banking, and one job is trading. And trading is like a very brutal job. You're always on the ball. You're looking at 6 screens, immense amount of pressure, and you have to make profit. You have to sell something and make profit. Like one of my friends, he's a hedge fund manager. He makes tons of money, but he's got the mindset for it. He's quite a calm person. And they say one of those qualities to do that job is you have to be detached emotionally. Because if you're losing money, you'll panic. If you're making money, then you'll get happy. But the aim is to be detached because it can go up and down. An expert trader can read what's going on. So anyways, so the point is that so people started to go into fields which suit them. And Like one of my friends, he completely dropped out, and he became a teacher, and he went to like a very good university, top 10, and he was doing engineering, but he wanted to be a teacher. So this is the thing. So you can do a job and not like and do it for the money, but then it's going to come back to you, and you're going to be like, what am I doing? So Krishna is saying this: realize your nature. What is your dharma? Your dharma. You have to think of dharma as, when we think of dharma, we sometimes don't think it's bhakti, but dharma is like a cup, and the bhakti is the water you put in the cup and you offer it to Krishna. Without the cup, you can't offer it to Krishna, because it's all about your nature, your work, your nature. So that's why Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter, who receives this knowledge? Is the parampara that's given. What is that parampara called? Who are the personalities that receive this knowledge? You know, it's in the 4th chapter. It says Vivasvan. What kind of people are these people? These are leaders of society. They're called Raja Rishis. Why was it given to Raja Rishis? Why not just someone living in the forest? Why specifically Raja Rishis? Yes.
And enforce it. Right?
So they can spread it to the community.
So people are trained to know how to engage their nature and their work in spirituality and make spiritual advancement. Because remember, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna doesn't talk about sadhana. He doesn't say chant Hare Krishna. He doesn't say read scripture. He doesn't say anything like that. He says this is all about Varnashrama. It's all about talking about how to spiritualize your work. And it's very profound, because some people may not think about working, but people always have to work, because working is, you have to work to sustain yourself in this material world. So Krishna says, so these Raja Rishis would make sure everyone knew the science. And so one of the main books for Varnashram, because this, is Manusmriti, and the person to receive it was Lord Brahma. Manu teaches it. He's one of the forefathers of mankind. And in the Bhagavatam, it talks about how the demigods, they approached Lord Brahma. They said, teach us Varnashram Dharma, because you know how to teach, you know how to spiritualize it. So then he spoke it. So when you engage your nature into Krishna service, it becomes bhakti. We shouldn't see it as something separate. And dharma also means other things. It also means social convention. It means norms. It means this, but it means engaging your nature in Krishna service. We read the Leela Amrita. We read about George Harrison, the famous Beatle from Liverpool in UK, and he wanted to give up his musical career and become a full-time devotee. And Prabhupada said to him, no, don't. Just sing for Krishna. I'm just trying to think of another personality. I just can't come to me. But Prabhupada always encouraged people, engage your nature and do it for Krishna. And I remember reading it was such a profound thing, such a simple thing. And Prabhupada would always encourage people, whatever they gave, he would engage it. I remember people would bring these. There was, when Prabhupada used to do kirtan in the park, Tompkins Square Park, people would bring all these fancy instruments that are not Vedic instruments, the African drum. Then they would bring what would look like whoppers, but they weren't whoppers. They were these metal sheets that were put together, and Prabhupada would say to him, just do it, engage it. You're a musician, do it for Krishna. Because Prabhupada never went against. He was always engaging people according to their nature, and Prabhupada would say, this person is suited to be a leader, this person is suited to be this. Actually, I'm thinking of a story when I was in Mayapur many years ago. We went to this temple, and I think it was the temple where Lord Chaitanya studied, if I'm correct. There's a deity there called Radha Gopinath. Is that right much in Mayapur?
I don't know that.
So it's a school where Lord Chaitanya studied. And there was a priest there. He was a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was Prabhupada's godbrother. He passed away in the late 90s, early 2000s. And when we were there, the Brahmana was telling us giving a class, and he was saying that this person, he died at a very old age. He remained a lifelong brahmachari. He never married, because his spiritual master said, better you remain a brahmachari and worship the deity. If you become a sannyasi, then you have to travel around and preach. And you're not going to be you're a very introvert person. You don't like to connect with people. You just like to be by yourself. If you get married, more problems. Better you stay here. Just stay brahmachari. So he was talking about, and I was thinking he was talking about his nature. He's telling him, just engage your nature, just stay here. It's suited to you. And I thought that was such, and you know, if you think about it in terms of like managerial, it was so expert because he's not only just telling him to engage to do this service, but he's saying this is your nature. This is how you can manage the temple. You can become the best version of yourself by doing this. And I thought that was really amazing. So that's what an expert leader, a Raja Rishi or a spiritual master tells the devotees, people under him, do this. This is your nature. So like at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in the UK, they have this system where people who retire from professional industries like accountancy or human resources, they are encouraged that now you have some time, why don't you engage that service at the manor and use your skills? I mean, you don't get salary, but you do it as a service. And they're very happy doing it. And it's very, very interesting because there's people, because, you know, when you sit you do nothing, you become a bit dull, you become bored. You don't feel you're being you're not being used properly. But when you're doing that same thing, but you're doing it for Krishna, it's like you're engaging your nature and you're feeling satisfied, you're feeling happy. So it doesn't matter what the dharma is. You know, it doesn't even have to be occupation, but whatever you're doing, you must do it. Even if it's painful, even if it's stressful, even if it puts your life at danger, you must do it because that is your duty. You've made, just like we make vows at initiation, we make vows in marriage. You take an oath when you're a doctor. Like when a doctor, they take that oath. And not just doctors, I think the lawyers do it as well. That they have to stand for what their job stands for. So doctors, if someone is dying in front of them, even if that person has hurt their family, they have to save that person's life. Because that's the dharma they live for. They made that oath. So when you do that, it pleases Krishna. Because you're not only a person moral and ethical, but if you're doing it for Krishna, that's the best platform to do service and purify yourself. Like there's an interesting story. Some of you may know. It's a little bit shocking, but Srila Prabhupada had a sister. Sorry, her name was Pishima. Pishima is like a nickname, like a name you call her auntie. But so she was also a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Prabhupada said she was a pure devotee, very expert cook, and she had a husband who wasn't a devotee, and so she was told to cook meat for him. So she would cook non-veg. And you think to yourself, she's a devotee, but she must be getting karma for it. But the thing was, she was doing her duty as a wife to serve her husband, but she was never attached to eating the meat, so she never accrued any sinful activities from it. Because one of the principles of getting a negative reaction or getting engrossing karma is you are attached to doing that. Well, that's one of the principles. So she never did it, but she did it as duty. And I thought it was really interesting. She did a duty to her husband, even though he wasn't a devotee, he was an alcoholic, non-veg, he wasn't very supportive, but still she did that duty. And I thought that was really powerful. Now, obviously, we should avoid those situations, but just doing your duty, it pleases Krishna. Even if you're not a devotee, even if you are someone who is a demigod worshipper, or even if you're a fruitive person, even that that mentality takes you to the heavenly planets, which is better than coming back and staying in the material world and coming into the animal species. So dharma is so underestimated. So the power of dharma is that it's the best platform because it's to go make advancement in bhakti. Why? Because it's your own nature. So if you're someone who's a student, study for Krishna. If you're someone who's a doctor, help people for Krishna. And that consciousness changes. So Krishna. So what does if we analyze Krishna says the yoga ladder. But if you think about it, all our activities also go for these different evil levels of consciousness. We do the activity, right? There's not much knowledge there, but we do the activity because it's our nature, right? We're attached to doing our engaging our nature. And as we're advancing in bhakti, we're doing that activity. Now we're doing it with knowledge of Krishna consciousness. We're understanding the metaphysics behind it. Then we come to then we start to think of Krishna. We start to come to the dhyana platform. So we're doing the activity. We're doing it with knowledge of Krishna, but now we're thinking of Krishna. We're thinking this will please Krishna. Then from there, we come to the bhakti platform. The bhakti platform is we're doing the activity, we're doing it with knowledge of Krishna, we understand how bhakti works. Then we're doing it with thinking of Krishna, but more importantly, you're doing it for Krishna, and that's bhakti, when you do it for Krishna. And that's what Arjuna says to Krishna. So Krishna says to Arjuna, he says, Mam anusmara yudhyacha, think of me and fight. Do it for me. And then Krishna later on says, Sarva dharman parichaja ma mekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami ma suchaha. Give up everything, surrender to me. All these other religions, surrender to me. I will deliver you. So he's telling Arjuna to fight. He's telling fight for him. So, I'll just say one more point. So, like we hear one famous politician from India, Mahatma Gandhi. He wrote a commentary on the Gita, and his conclusion after doing his translation was to be non-violent. And it's quite an interesting thing to say, because if you look at the front of the book, it's on a battlefield, right? They don't look like they're practicing non-violence to me. So, so obviously the point is not also to be violent either. The point is, whatever you do your duty and engage that in Krishna service and make spiritual advancement. So that is the power of bhakti. The power of bhakti is you can engage something in Krishna service and make advancement. And it's the easiest thing actually. It's your nature. And great souls in the past have perfected themselves. Great kings. Okay, anyone have a question or comment they'd like to make?
I have one question.
Yes.
So you said it should be question, yeah.
But his comment was also good actually, because when I was thinking about it, it was good.
Krishna.
His comments go from
He's a professor.
Okay, Prabhu, I'm surprised sometime myself too, because I saw this 4 classification and then having this Krishna's bhakti. So is there any conflict between, if I am Brahmin, I will get Krishna faster than if I become Shudras, and I can become, because sometimes people also ask me that question.
Are you talking about the type of work you do?
Poor classification and having this bhakti. Is there any conflict that
No.
someone to be update himself to be Brahmin to get the Krishna from Shudra to Brahmin? So yeah.
So you're saying if you do a certain type of work according to your Varna, are you disadvantaged if you're lower down the scale? Do you have more chances as a Brahmin? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so that people are, telling something like that. Okay, you have to be transform yourself to
A Brahmin.
group wise, and then you will get the Krishna easily. So is that true?
Yeah. So when people say they're Brahmin, they're talking about how they make money. You're not talking about I'm born in because a lot of people say we're born in Brahmin. When you say I'm a Brahmin, it means how I'm making money. You're not talking about I have the qualities of a Brahmin. Okay, so same thing with the other thing. So, if we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see the associates of Lord Chaitanya. A lot of them did not come from Brahmin families. Rupa and Sanatan weren't allowed into the Jagannath Puri temple because they took their adopted Muslim attire names because they were serving under the Muslim government. They weren't allowed. Haridas Thakur was not considered a Brahmana. He wasn't. And he was the Namacharya. So the situation they were in did not pose any obstacle in them advancing in their bhakti. If anything, it helped them. So, another thing we have to think about. So, one of the names of Lord Chaitanya is Patita Pavana. That means he is the deliverer of the fallen souls. And if you think about it, everyone in Kali Yuga is a fallen soul. Why? Because in Bhagavatam it says, Kolo Shudra Sambhava. Everyone is a born Shudra. No one is a pure Brahmana. Pure Brahmana lineages have gone now. Like they say in certain places, there's caste Goswamis, there's caste, but that doesn't exist anymore. So everyone has problems. We're born in Kali Yuga. It's a terrible age. We've got issues, we've got this, we've got that. And that makes us the most qualified, and for Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So it doesn't matter what Varna you do. We hear of I think it was the cobbler. He was he was trying to read the Bhagavad. Huh?
Ruhidas.
Is that his name? Ruhidas. Was he a cobbler?
Yeah,
I always get because there's just so he was. Lord Chaitanya met him. I think it was in South India, and Lord Chaitanya noticed that he was reading the Bhagavad Gita, but he was reading upside down. So that meant he didn't know Sanskrit. He didn't know how to read it. And then Lord Chaitanya said, "Why are you reading this for? If you don't know the words, you don't understand it. You're illiterate." He said that if I'm saying the past time right, he got the instruction to read it from his spiritual master, and he said, I can see that Lord Krishna is so merciful. He's become the charioteer of Arjuna, and this is making me very inspired, making me very feel love for Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya said, you are the perfect teacher of Bhagavad Gita. You've understood the message of it, because Krishna became the devotee of his devotees. So that means it doesn't matter if you don't know Sanskrit, if you're not born in pure lineages, you can still make spiritual advancement. And we can see that. And like someone actually asked once Prabhupada, I said, can you show me, some person approached Prabhupada, I think it was some sort of magician type of person, said, can you show me any tricks or any miracles? And Prabhupada said, actually he was doing his tricks, but I think if I'm correct, he actually put like these objects next to Prabhupada and make him disappear near Prabhupada's face, and the disciples were getting angry. And Prabhupada said, but can you make these Westerners become pure Vaishnavas? And that magician said, no, I can't do that. So then Prabhupada said, so I this is the greatest miracle, this is the greatest magic, to make people who have no connection to Vedic culture become Krishna Bhaktas, give up their lives. Because a lot of them came from very rich, successful families. They were very, in the material world, they were going far places. So Prabhupada inspired them to become Vaishnavas. Like growing up in London, I never thought a Western-bodied person could ever become a practitioner of Hinduism or read the Bhagavad Gita or wear Vaishnava Indian clothing. It was just inconceivable to me because of the British, they ruled India and there was a lot of racism. There was this colonial mindset were better than them. And then when I came in contact with Krishna consciousness, I couldn't believe it. It was shocking to me and it's just only and it wasn't like a fad. It wasn't like, oh, they're into yoga, they're into veganism. It wasn't that. These people were surrendering their lives and taking up the path of bhakti. And I thought that is something special. And that means that your background is no bar to you becoming a pure Vaishnava and going back to Godhead. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. And you have a question? Oh, okay. Would anyone like to ask a question, a comment? Yes.
So
nice and loud.
So a couple of months ago, while I was in a class,
yes,
so the teacher was making a point.
Yes.
She said that your background doesn't determine your duty. So like, if you're from a family of Brahmins, but your nature isn't that, that you should follow your nature. Like if you're a Kshatriya, you should follow that. So I was wondering, is this connected to the point that you're making today?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you should follow your nature. If you let's say Korea, you go into Korea and you don't enjoy it, you may be able to do it, but how long can you do something that you don't like doing?
Very little time.
Yeah, you're not going to enjoy it. So you have to be true to your nature, and if your nature is to be an artist, be an artist. Because remember, you have to do something that's your natural. Because remember, when something's in your nature, you're generally better at it. You're willing to go through the austerity of learning it and becoming better at it. You can push yourself further in that art, in that skill, whatever you're learning. But you can't do that with something you don't enjoy. I remember back in 2005, I met this guy. I used to work I had a part-time job in a phone shop. And because I was doing a mobile contract for him, and I asked him, what do you do? He said, he's setting up call centers in India. And then he was similar age to me, and I said, oh, so what did you do before? He said, oh, because at that time, getting into investment bank was a new thing, especially for South Asian people in England. He said, I got into investment bank. I did really well in my interview. He said, but after 6 weeks, I gave it up. I said, why? He said, I was working 60, 70 hours a week, and he said it was slave labor. And he was a graduate. That means he didn't have a permanent contract, he was a graduate. He said he couldn't last 6 weeks. So imagine something if he would have carried on, he'd probably be on easily 7 figures salary a year, be living in a great place, traveling, he had a fancy cars, but he probably would have had a mental breakdown. He probably would have quit. It would have affected his life. So doing something that's against your nature, you will never like it. But doing something in your nature, you're willing to push yourself. You're willing to go deeper and further and take on the austerity. Anything else?
Yeah, I answered my question.
Oh, thank you.
I would just like to make one final point that
yes.
In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Chatra Varnam Mayam Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha.
Yes.
The nature and the qualities of
yes.
a person are what determine their varna, not their birth.
That's right.
The word janma is not there. The idea that you're born into a particular caste or a particular occupation is a false notion. Not that it doesn't ever happen.
Yeah.
You know, if you come from a family of musicians or doctors or from a family of farmers, there's a strong chance you may take up that occupation, but it's not a given or a guarantee. And Krishna never pegs it that way. Yet in India, and oftentimes even I think in our own movement, sometimes we think that people who come from a family of a particular kind of occupation need to follow that same occupation even if it doesn't suit them. But it's guna and karma. Guna means qualities and karma is work. People, as you've been saying, find the certain kind of work kind of natural for them, and they find other kinds of work very difficult.
Yeah.
So that's why their nature should be involved. And their qualities, if someone has the wrong quality for a particular occupation, they're not going to make any progress at that occupation. So that's why guna and karma are the actual things. And janma may be there, may not be there, but it's not very relevant. And in Kali Yuga, everything is scrambled, refried culture. So we have so many things, like for instance, the school teacher, like they have a rabbinical side because they're learning and teaching, but the other side of the coin, they're working for somebody, which is a Shudra thing. So everything is mixed, and a person may have their own particular characteristic. Like we have Kolavechra Sridhar, who was known in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as a Shudra, yet he was one of Lord Chaitanya's dear devotees. So although he sold banana leaves, which actually in one sense makes him a Vaishya, but he was considered a Shudra, I guess, based on the janma, on the birth characteristics. So by his occupation, he was a Vaishya. Of course, he didn't make much money. But when a devotee is serving Krishna and using the fruits of their labor for Krishna, then that is devotional service. And what occupation they may follow, that's a whole different thing. I think recently, Mother Urmila has written a whole book about how to discover your occupation. And I think
karma dharma, something like that.
I think that's something that really is wanting in ISKCON, that devotees need to understand how to find an occupation that will allow them time to practice Krishna consciousness, because even in any category you might think of as far as occupation goes, there will be ways where you will be a slave to the system, and there will be a subset of that same occupation where you can have some liberty to practice Krishna consciousness in a reasonable way. So anyway, I just wanted to...
I just wanted to say one thing before I finish. So you were talking about Janma. So I'll just finish on this point. So there's a story from the Mahabharata where Dronacharya was training the Kauravas and Pandavas in the forest, and there was one person from a tribal caste. His name was Ekalavya. And he approached so he wasn't from a Kshatriya background. He said to Dronacharya, "Can I become your disciple?" So Dronacharya said no. So then he built an effigy of Dronacharya and started worshipping it. And in secret, he would learn this martial arts when Dronacharya was teaching his disciples. Then anyway, and then somebody saw this, the result of Ekalavya shooting, and they go back to Dronacharya, and they realized it was Ekalavya. So Dronacharya found him, approached him, and said to him, "You've accepted me as guru, so you need to give me Guru Dakshin." So the Guru Dakshin was to cut off his thumb. So if you cut off a thumb, that's going to completely disable you in becoming an expert archer, because he actually became as good, if not better, than Arjuna. Now, when people hear this story, they think, that this is very unfortunate. This person was actually a sincere person, and he had Kshatriya qualities. He had Guru Bhakti, but he wasn't a Kshatriya, because so Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that he was learning this to be for his own fame. He wanted to be better than Arjuna. It wasn't out of that he was a Kshatriya. He didn't want to really use it to protect people. He just wanted to do it out of fame. And later on in Mahabharata, he fought in Mahabharata war actually, and Krishna killed him. And just another thing is that in those times when the children were born in the family of Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, now a lot of the time they did have the qualities and nature of those Varnas. So because remember that it was a time where purificatory rituals were performed perfectly, so they generally took on those qualities. Now that's not for everybody, but it was generally for those people. So if you look at the kings, of Maharaj Dashrath, he had 4 children: Ram, Lakshman, Shatrughan, and Bharat. They were all Kshatriyas. So was their children, and so on. So generally they were born with these qualities. But in Kali Yuga, no one's born with these qualities. That's why Krishna says, Chaturvanya Maya Shishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. It's your nature and qualities determines your nature, determines your varna. Okay, I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.